Hello and welcome to Politically Incorrect Knitters. My name is Anne Pinkava, joined as always by the lovely Deplorable Knitter.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today.
And this episode is sponsored by the lovely Chicken Lady Fiber Arts. You can check her out at chickenladyfiberarts.com and get 20% off your order with our code PIKSchool20. And you can get beautiful things like this sweet maple yarn. It's lovely. And she has a new sock set with this coming out, as well as all sorts of new fingering yarn bases. This is her Sarima sock, which is still available. But she, like I said, she has lots of new bases coming in if you want to check them out. So again, chickenladyfiberarts.com.
Yeah, Anne and I were talking before we got going, and I was telling her, because I'm a newsletter subscriber, and every time I get one from Chicken Lady, I have to look at it. And I was really trying to decide whether or not I could justify buying a DK sock set because it's so pretty. And the contrast color was like a mustardy yellow, and it was so pretty with it. And I don't know, I think I've talked myself out of it, but we'll see what happens in the next week or so. The thing is summer's over, so my amount of work I have to do is less. So I'll probably have to pass. But you never know, maybe we'll see.
That's the thing too, fall comes around, it's like, wait, sweater season. That like mentally my mind shifts from, oh, well, make something small like socks to, no, make it big. Do the big project. You need it.
See, I don't have that problem. As everybody who watches knows, I have trouble focusing on anything bigger than a hat. And actually, what I'm working on right now, very fancy. This is Michael's Impeccable, maybe. It was on clearance at Michael's. I got a whole bunch of it because I am using it for my knitting in the round class. So this semester at co-op, or whatever it's a semester, whatever. This time at co-op, I'm teaching a knitting in the round class, and the first thing they're going to make are going to be ear warmers. And so I'm knitting it up in the yarn just to see what's going on. And I was kind of telling Anne a little bit about it. My husband, he's against me bringing more yarn into the house. And so I had to, these boxes were coming in. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, dude, I teach a class. I need to have yarn for my class. But I got all of this.
Don't let anyone from hobby hear that. There's a little.
Oh yeah, we can talk about that in a second. But
right.
But I got this clearance yarn because this one's probably the one that they will like the least because the colors are kind of really bright, but there's other ones that are like pinks and purples and like light blues and darker blues. And I just thought, since our knitting this semester is going to be really simple because I'm teaching them more about how to like control their needles, and we're going to learn how to decrease with double points. And so I just thought if I had some yarn that was interesting, that would help kind of keep it going, because you know how it is when you're knitting and it's all one color and it's ugh. So at least this time around it's going to stripe. It's very, very busy, but it's going to be cute. It's going to be an ear warmer. And then the pattern I'm doing it with has like a little garter stitch bow. You just do a rectangle and then you wrap some yarn around the middle, so it'll be cute when it's done.
Yeah,
but
no, and totally, if you're a new knitter and you're you don't want to have to deal with, actually cutting the yarn or weaving it in or what not to use or what join to use. And it's like, nope, the yarn is just that way. Keep going.
Exactly.
Much easier.
And yeah, I mean, my class is for like 10 to 14-year-olds. So some of them have been knitting a little bit. Some of them are pretty good, but some of them are pretty new. And so I didn't want it to be anything too crazy for them. But Anna and I weren't even going to record this week because I was so busy and there's all this life happening, and co-op was supposed to start on Friday. And we got an email saying, hey, the church has been doing renovations. Our rooms aren't going to be ready. We cannot start. And I just cannot even tell you what a sigh of relief it was. And I'm teaching my 2 classes like I always do. knitting around. So this is our first project. So I at least need this done. And then I'm doing the forest animals, little crochet animals. And haven't made anything of that yet. So I need to get my butt going because class starts. It was going to start in 2 days, but now I at least have another week. Thank God. But so that's what I've been doing. And we're going camping this weekend, the family camping. We're going to stay in a little cabin, and my kids are going to play on the playground that is right across from the cabin, and my husband and I are going to sit in lawn chairs. That's really the whole plan. So I'm trying to decide how many projects to bring, because I never have that much downtime. And I think that if I'm like kind of just chilling, I might have a lot of time to work on things. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Yeah. Or at least, pretend that you're going to work on things. I always bring a lot of projects. And it's like, yeah, I'm going to work on that. Do I really?
I really have things I need to get done too. So it's kind of one of those, like if I bring 3 or 4 projects, will I be able to finish them? I hope so, maybe. So I have to figure out what to pack. I've packed the kids already. I've packed the swimming bag, and then I haven't packed mine. And that's mostly because I have to decide how many projects are going to go into my bag and how much room I have. So my husband will be like, "What's wrong with you?" He does not get me and my love of yarn, unfortunately.
Well, that's all right too. So you're traveling. I am heading out again this weekend. Hopefully, so I'm heading out to the Pittsburgh area. So hopefully I can make it out and see you, which would be awesome. So yeah, I'm excited, but it's
Anne and I are trying to make plans. And one of my kids, I mentioned it to my husband, and the next day my kid goes, "So are we going to meet Anne today?" And I'm like, dude, this is like, but I'm excited. I'm glad they're excited to meet her too, because we've only ever met across the interwebs.
Yeah, so that's exciting and or scary. So it'll be fun though, but it's the whole thing over again of you're packing and planning and everything, and it's like I've just finally hit the home base stage to be like, no wait, heading out again. Got it. And it's through the dang Denver airport again. Not a fan. Hope it's better this time.
Oh, you have to travel through Denver again though?
Again? Well, it was something stupid with the tickets. I'm like, please don't lose my stuff. But also that there's a restricted amount of things that I can bring. So it's that whole project packing. How much should I bring versus clothes? Yes.
I have an idea.
Yes.
You can ship it to me or your friend that you're staying with.
That is very true.
Because also, if you actually come to my real house, I would let you borrow some of my yarn, because we're friends like that. I would do it for you. I wouldn't do that for everybody, but
That's quite a generous offer.
Well, there's always the skeins that are off limits. Even my mother, who I adore and can have anything that she wants. There's a few that I'm like, I really don't want you to take that one. Like,
right. I've been saving that one for special.
I think every knitter gets that.
I am almost done with this row, so I can show off what I'm making. Yeah.
Yes, please do. I'm sure it's much nicer than my green monstrosity I've got going on here.
It's like, I think yours is, like you're teaching the next knitters. I'm just going ham in my corner. Anyways, I've been working on, so we have, we talked about it a little bit last week, doing a 2 sweater challenge. I did publish the 2 sweater challenge on Instagram. So the rules of that are, here, I got to remember all of them now. First off, one of your 2 sweaters has to be an adult size sweater. To enter this, you have to be on Instagram. It's PIK 2 sweater challenge, and it's in the post which hashtags to use. So it's 3 tiers of prizes. The first group is 2 sweater challenge WIP, work in progress, for your first tier prizes. So anyone who participates gets gets into that tier. And next one is once you finish your first sweater. So it's 2 sweater challenge, 1 down is the hashtag. And the third one, once you finally get to your 2 sweaters by the end of the year and you are the true winner already, it is 2 sweater challenge. I'm not freezing, baby, is your hashtag to be entered for the grand prize. But so yeah, that's how it goes. And how the drawing is going to work is if you've completed your 2 sweaters and you're in the top tier prizes, you are still eligible for the lower tiers, but I put in there no double winners. So we're going to draw the grand prize first and then go all the way down. And someone's finished the sweater already. So there's industrious people out there.
Seriously? Is
yeah,
it Tabitha?
No, it's not. But works in progress count as well. So if you're like, oh, well, I have this sweater here, but I've been working on it for years. So it's like, no, get it done. Get it done.
I was going to ask you,
coming.
Because I have this sweater that I started testing for Knitting McPurley, and I need to put like 6 more inches on it. And I didn't know if that would count.
I say it counts, man, because
wow. Set up to get that going.
Right. The only one that doesn't count is Neil. Neil, I'm watching you. He's like, well, I have this sweater that just needs to be seamed up. That's too far. You actually have to have knitting to finish in order to participate. And crochet. Crochet sweaters count. Like I'm not splitting hairs here.
That's cool. Well, then maybe you guys will see my Knitting McPurley sweater someday. If I finish it.
Well, there are a lot of people who are like, oh, well, this sweater has been sitting in a bag. Get it done. No, really. Put it as a part of the challenge. I don't care. I'm like, go for it. But yeah, and if you also want to donate a prize, please email us. We're still getting them together. So we'll announce them once we know what we're giving away. But yeah, it's going to be good, guys. Yeah, and there's lots of other knit alongs too. Like this 2 sweater challenge goes to the end of the year, but Anna Knitter is doing a knit along. The Let Them Live make along is still going on until the end of October. So if you want to make any baby stuff or donate to Let Them Live, that's all with 2 Sisters and Some Yarn. And the Summer of Murder knit along just ended, and I won.
Yeah, you posted so like once, right? And you won.
I did, and it was terrible. I love that I put out a post basically saying, hey, it's the last day, everybody, go make sure to get your entries in, and here's mine. And it was Tabitha's podcast because that counts. And yeah, I won. I was very excited.
I think that's so funny because honest to God, all I do is sit when I'm not like, living life, but in the evenings and things, I listen to murder podcasts all the time and I knit, and I never remembered to post it ever. So I didn't even get in on it.
There you go. You gotta be in it to win it.
I know.
Oh, I was very surprised and very pleased. Thank you, Tabitha. And I'll show it off to y'all once it comes. But anyways, sorry, all of that to say, this is actually the knitting segment. What am I talking about? But I did finish the back of my Shire Erin sweater. And yeah, it's very nice. It's very rhubarby.
It's really pretty.
But as I said last week, that I had done the full back and some of this sweater before with yarn that I had hand spun, and then that project totally stalled because I wasn't sure I'd be able to finish it, and then having to get your spinning wheel out. Who wants to do that? Totally lame. But anyway, so yeah, I got the back of that done, and I got this far of the front. So
wow. Sorry.
And that's all. I mean, you've been off living life and doing things, and I'm like, well, I'm just hanging out for this week, so I'm making this sweater.
Yeah, I wish I had more downtime, honestly. Life has been a little bit too busy, if you ask me. Am I interrupting you?
No.
Okay, can I tell you what happened yesterday?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, so yesterday, as most of you know, I clean houses as a part-time job. It worked out yesterday that instead of me doing school with my kids, I was going to take them to my mom's. They were going to do a little school and I was going to work. But come to find out, my little one wanted to go to work with me because I've had a head cold. And so they said, hey, I'll come with you. I will help you. You won't have to work as hard. It was very, very kind of them.
Mm-hmm.
So we went to work and we worked. We cleaned 2 houses. And I've mentioned that I drive an electric car. I miscalculated our mileage yesterday. And so the 2 of us ended up hanging out in our car, trickle charging through extension cord while guests were at the rental house I clean so that I could leave and drive home. And it was only like 5 miles, but it took so long to charge. Right. So like, it's fine. It was my fault. I should have known better, all kinds of things. We have a gas car. I could have taken the gas car. I just didn't. And yeah, I wasted almost 2 hours of my day yesterday just waiting for my car to charge. So I love my electric car. In 6 years, this is the only time it's happened. But let me tell you, it was painful. It's painful.
Nothing like the future.
You know what though? It's a great commuter. It's a little quiet car. It's comfortable. It's a great ride. But it was my bad. The whole thing was my bad, but I can't believe that this is what they want for people. What happens when all these electric cars can't charge? They're shutting down the power grid. You can't plug it in. You can't. What are people going to do?
Right.
You can't like jump them or put gas in them on the side of the road. You got to bring a generator.
Right. And that there's I saw this thing that they do have quick charging stations, but that like cuts down on your battery life by 1.5 years. And those things aren't cheap.
Yeah. There are 3 tiers of charging. There's trickle charging, which you can do through a 3-prong outlet, which is what I had to do yesterday, which took forever. Mm-hmm. And then there's like a level 2 charger, which is what we have in our own house so that it doesn't take forever to charge our car. It's a dryer plug. And so it's got a capacity to charge faster. Yeah, but those level 3 ones, they talk about like putting them on like, expressways or throughways or whatever. And it's not going to be good because you can charge your car in 30 minutes, but you can't do it over and over and over again. Like you said, it kills your battery, but it's just, if you do it too much, it can like fry it right up. It's not even like, so you couldn't like travel across the country in one of those cars because you would have to slow charge it somewhere. You'd have to like let it rest. It's crazy. But
right. I mean, like even, from a totally different angle, for example, like the state of Minnesota, all of the gas has ethanol in it, and ethanol destroys, especially older cars. Mm-hmm. So if you're driving through Minnesota with an older car and you're like, oh, gotta fill ethanol, it's like, oh, I know this isn't good, but how else am I going to go across? And you just kind of wince and, let it happen. But if you can't even on a cross country road trip make that work, that's just not feasible.
So does South Dakota not have ethanol in their gas?
We do, but not all of it.
Okay, because
like
pretty
you can
much
have right, you have a non-ethanol option, but in Minnesota there is no non-ethanol option.
In our area, there's one gas station that has a non-ethanol option, and it's right near us because the boat engines can't have ethanol. Because it gets like water in their engines. Yeah. And that's the only place you can get it though. Everywhere else, you can't.
Really?
Yeah, it's weird.
My poor little car.
Anne's all worried about the car.
I know, my car, which is nothing to write home about, but I'm like, no, live longer. Oh, and also I should say, hey Molly, stop doing what you're doing. You're being loud. I also want to say, in connection with electric cars, that a lady wrote into me this past week, and she said that she actually works in rare earth mining fields. So she had a couple of comments on what we said last week. So I wanted to make sure to get them in so we have all so we have it all correct and makes sense. So I'm not just, talking out my butt here. So, which, it's important, I think, not to do, especially when it comes to, I mean, I know like mining specific minerals is a very specialty field. And yeah, I will 110% admit that I don't know a terrible amount about this. So I'm very, very grateful that, she wrote in and said, hey, this is kind of what's going on, because rare earth elements, first off, that like lithium and cobalt aren't considered rare earth elements, because rare earth elements are like the top of the periodic table, and that mining them, that they are mined in China, but they are most readily accessible in China, that we're not Western nations. It isn't just that we're not touching them thing, it's that we don't have them. Like they're putting money in and they're developing ways, or they're developing unconventional methods to get these elements, but also that we're trying to even find where they can be mined in America. That like cobalt is a transition, and apart from rare earth elements, cobalt is a transition metal and lithium is an alkali metal. So there is some domestic funding for them, but that it's there, but it's not in such a large way as it is in other places in the world. And also things like mining them with acid, that's not just a third world nation thing, that they isolate these materials, that they're, no matter how you do it, you have to use, sulfuric or hydrochloric acid to get these elements. And also, it was interesting that funding on these things actually are based on public opinion. So, no one's going to shove money towards something if everyone thinks that it's a horrible thing to do. So that is kind of an issue.
It's interesting. I mean, my dad and I were talking about car batteries this morning, and he was saying a lot of the same things that you said about the mining of the batteries. So it's interesting that the perception is so off. And so I wonder how that happens.
That's why I wanted to say it, because it is something that I'm not super knowledgeable about. But
yep.
Yeah, and it is also very interesting that we are, looking in America, that we're trying to develop technology to get minerals that are much harder to find.
So when I was talking about my yarn purchases that my husband doesn't like, Anne made a little bit of a joke about a hobby thing. And I'm certain this is a subject that is going to get covered extensively next Tuesday on our show.
Right.
On Live from the Knitting Wars. Neil especially has really been going on and on about it. But the yarn brand Hobby has gotten, they put out it was a joke. It was a joke video about where to hide yarn from your spouse. And like the person was opening up their trunk, and then they were like, they had a basket of toilet paper in the bathroom, and they picked up the toilet paper and there was yarn. It was obviously a joke. I mean, because
right.
if that was really your hiding place, gross. And second, if your husband, unless your husband is one of the guys that won't replace the toilet paper, he would lift one up and he would see the yarn. So it would be a poor spot to hide it anyway.
Right.
Oh, and they had made it gender neutral. So that was also part of, everybody lost their minds about it again, because hiding, that's a abusive relationship, that's a this, that's a that. Okay, no matter how fantastic your relationship is, do you honest to God tell your spouse every single thing? Like, for real. You can have a joke. It's the liberal right. We can't have a sense of humor thing again.
Yeah, and also it's okay, yes, it's a joke. First off, everybody calm down. But secondly, as we're knitters, we spend a lot of money on yarn, and a lot of other people don't understand all the money that we spend on yarn. That's pretty much the same for any hobby, and why do you need all this yarn? Why do you need, it's like, no, but it's a new color though. It's a new thing. It has this is the building blocks for my hobby and I love it. Like even this week with like I said, with the sweater knitting challenge, is like, ooh, I should look for yarn in sweater quantities. Well, hand-dyed yarn in sweater quantities is expensive. Like, I'm just gonna say that out there. And again, we have a promo code. Woohoo! PIK School 20 Chicken Lady. Get your yarn cheaper. But also, like, there is a certain amount of sticker shock that comes into like, wow, to get a sweater quantity of yarn is not a casual thing. And it's like, oh, well, you're hiding it. It's like, well, I understand the value of it, but explaining the value of it to somebody else may be more difficult. It's the, either even older thing. It's like, oh, why do you need so many pairs of shoes? Why do you need this? Why do you need that? It's a, I don't know, that spending
No.
habits are not always understood by other people, and part of
And
that's
that's a good point. And if you're doing what you're supposed to be, and then you have discretionary money left over, it shouldn't be a conversation anyway. Depending on how your relationship works.
Mhm.
My husband and I have certain things we pay for. If I'm paying for them and I have money to buy yarn, it's not really up to him, but everybody's losing their mind.
Right. I follow an account, and it's a guy, and he does that he is a big time collector in specialty Harry Potter stuff. Okay. And it's pretty cool, the stuff that he pulls out of nowhere that's like, I didn't even know that you could buy this very specific minor prop. Like he had the Great Hall Hogshead water pitchers from the Harry Potter movie. That he had one, like, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I want one. That's awesome, even though I'm not a big time collector. But most of his jokes are, oh no, another box is coming. I'm gonna have to hide it from my wife, because why do you have all this stuff stacking up in your room? That it is a collector thing or a hobbyist thing to have lots of stuff that other people don't quite understand the value of. It just happens.
Yeah.
And would you turn to that guy and be like, sir, must be in a terrible relationship if you want to hide from your wife?
And it all depends on who says it too. If one of the wokies had come out with that reel doing that, everybody would have been fine with it. But because they didn't, then they lost their ever-loving minds and it turned into like a thing. Mm-hmm. So, but Neil has much more to say about it. So if you are interested in the reaction from the world about that, make sure you tune in on Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern to find out what Neil has to say, and our fabulous panel of people full of nonsense. So
it'll be a good time. It always is.
Oh, it always is. That's why I say it. Because it is a bunch of nonsense and we couldn't be happier about it.
Oh, and also to have a follow-up on what we said last week. That when we talked, it was only Biden giving weird little speeches about Trump people. We didn't expect him to go full lighting of death. Like, that was a bit of a shock.
What was that lighting? The whole thing looked, well, it looked evil for one, and it looked reminiscent of Nazi kind of things that you would expect to see from like a Hitler speech back in the day, with like people flanking him and the lights and the big open space behind him, or the not open space, but the tall curtain.
Right. It wasn't just that there was red lighting, but that it was mostly black with red highlights going up, and the Marines behind him, which is a disservice to the Marines to use them to make his political point, but also it's the Marines, it's the hardest hitting of the military branches. And, and they have I love a Marine uniform, but the black uniform with the white gloves and the white hat is very crisp, and it's very striking and very high contrast. And that with the red lighting and, the big American flag behind to make it okay, it was weird. And the fist shaking, and then he did that in a speech afterwards too, that I'm like, sir, are you all right? Like, have you taken your meds? Do you need to sit down? But it was just the spittle flying and the hate, and the Trump people are the fascists, and
no, for real. But the fist shaking and the spittle flying, and I'm loath to make a comparison to like him and Hitler. But if anybody's seen the speeches from back in the day, it's pretty reminiscent. It's a lot of that same kind of mannerisms. So angry that the spit is flying out of their mouth because these people are so terrible. And it's kind of really disturbing, honestly.
It is. And I mean, CNN even realized it in live because they moved the color palette so it looked magenta instead of red. And the flag behind, you can tell that the color was shifting too, which I thought was very interesting. But no, then the whole thing, I mean, that it's the question of, well, who okayed this one? Because that was a terrible idea. And I'm just the whole thing seems like incitement to me. And whether it's incitement to say these Trump people really are this horrible, even though like there's no specific event that he is calling out. There's not, they're still running off, January 6th and trying to say that Trump was in support of Nazism at Charlottesville, which did not happen. Like there were weird things at Charlottesville, but Charlottesville was not a Nazi thing. It wasn't the larger event of Charlottesville versus the little group, and Trump saying that he denounces the white supremacists entirely, but that his line that they keep bringing up, the good people on both sides, was good people on both sides of the debate between whether or not they should keep the Robert E. Lee statue or not. So again, not saying that they weren't. Anyways, all of that. We've hashed that out a million times, but always new people that haven't heard that. And it surprised me you haven't heard that. And I think that's sorry to ramble more, but that's a big difference in between the Biden speeches and the Trump speeches. That Trump will make fun of the elites. He'll make fun of the people who are opposed to him politically. But also he does have the ability to kiss and make up later. Like he made fun of Ted Cruz in the primary, but he was able to shake Ted Cruz's hand later. And he focuses on the people at the top. He does not say anything against the voters. Okay. Right. And it was Biden who was saying that the extreme MAGA right, the people were bad. And that sort of license any action you deem fit against the people, which is terrifying. But also, I mean, if you're just walking around and, the president of the United States just basically said incitement to violence against you is okay, well, it is freaky and it's something that is very concerning. But B, it's the sort of thing that sets off more unstable members of a society. So it's egging people on both sides that it turns the temperature up. Mr. Unifier is like, hey, it would be really great for me politically if something were to happen. And it's terrible.
Right. And, it's coming on the heels, it's coming on the heels of the censorship of some people that they don't like. I can't think of the guy's name, but he was like an MMA fighter or something that he had some misogynistic things. But some of the stuff he said was pretty unsavory, I won't even lie. But also we're getting to the point now where he's calling out ultra right-wing MAGA Republicans, and then they're starting to censor people that do say things that they don't agree with. And that's just a slippery slope. And it's happening very quickly. Like everybody knew that Biden was going to suck. Like that's not a thing that I'm surprised about, but I'm surprised how I feel like he's been president for like 100 years. Like it's just been so long, and it's really not even been like 2. Like it's gotten so bad so quickly. It's horrifying. But they've gotten to the point where they're like you said, we can call out. It was normal to call out the people they didn't like and on the top, but never the voters. No, nobody's ever come and said, oh, those voters are horrible people. And that's all they've done since Trump has come on the scene. And why are we okay with it? And why do we let them?
Right. And I mean, like, people throw around terms like Trump derangement syndrome. Oh boy, there be Trump derangement syndrome. And even in minor edges of the internet, I mean, here we are. Hi, welcome to Politically Incorrect Knitters. We exist because the knitting website called us white supremacists for being Trump supporters. In case we need to clarify, not white supremacists, kind of against that. Right. And all of the people that they called white supremacists were not all white. So
a lot of them weren't white. And they also said that any support of President Trump was unequivocally support for white supremacy. So there's no gray space in there for that. We are awful, and that's all there is. So
right. And also another fun rivalry parallel between Biden and rivalry. He said, "Oh yeah, not all I don't mean all Republicans. I just mean the ultra MAGA Republicans." Which kind of sounds like a beer. But the ultra MAGA Republicans, those are the horrible ones. And there's not even that many of them. I'm like, oh, well, the half the country that voted for Trump, apparently, just that's fine. And the moderate Republicans that I've worked with in office, it's like, oh, you really haven't worked with many people at all in office, Joe. But all right.
The moderate ones that you've worked with, those might be the rhinos that people are trying really hard to get rid of too. So I don't know about that.
Right. And also, there's nothing more charming than saying, oh, only the reasonable agree with me or can work with me and can come on my side. That's just lovely. I'd love bifurcated society between those who agree with Joe Biden and those don't. It's awesome. But yeah, that it's the same old playbook before. And the next day after Biden's speech, he's like, oh no, I didn't condemn everybody. It's like, we saw the Satan speech, Joe. That seemed pretty bad. It's like, no, but I'm not that bad. You kind of are though. And then he's shaking his fists and saying weird things about pharma now, which doesn't make any sense at all because, get your 16th booster. Like nothing is making sense here. And nothing is making sense, but what is coming out is like actual in the vein of violence. Like you're saying, oh, well, we're, the old thing that we make fun of, the silence is violence and, words are violence. And which do you mean? It's like, no, the supposed leader of the free world is standing out in front of Liberty Hall saying that there are evil people among you who hate democracy and are fascists. That's bad.
That's real bad. And never mind those people that, rioted and burned things down. And no, we're still going to push the narrative that the January 6th people is the worst thing we've ever seen in the whole world. Never mind that none of them that were arrested had weapons on them. Never mind that nobody actually died except one of our people, one of the unarmed people that went in. But freaking, I'm so tired of it. I'm so tired of this narrative that they're pushing and this division and
the divide between, assuming that we're on either side of the issue, that on what I think you think versus what you think I think is huge. I was watching, it was Steven Crowder's undercover video about a kids drag show in Texas, and that the police had lined up the two groups of people on either side of the street. So it was pro for the children's drag show on one side, and then there were counter protesters, and the police had them on the other side of the street and basically said, look, trouble happens when these two groups of people meet each other. So you're going to stay over here and we're going to stay over here, and there's going to be a lot less shouting. But they had one of their crew members going back and forth and asking questions, just as kind of posing as a neutral reporter. And it was very interesting because he was, he was talking to one side, and then he was able to walk to the other side and say, hey, the people on this side say this. What do you say to that? Because the two groups weren't actually allowed to touch, which I think is kind of a problem in itself. I mean, not that you want there to be massive shouting matches, but if you're going to resolve conflict, you need to have conflict. That you need to have that sort of clashing thing.
Not that you need to have conflict, but you need to be able to interact with someone who doesn't agree with you.
Right.
And you need to do it without shouting and without losing your shit just because they said something you don't like. That's the problem. It's like their parents never taught them. The other day my kid comes in and says, so and so pinched me. I said, so? And they're like, well, they pinched me, I don't like it. I'm like, okay, so pinch them back or go talk to them, or however you need to work that out. But there's so many people who, oh, mommy, so-and-so pinched me. Oh, baby, come here. They were so mean to you. You don't deserve that. We need to get away from that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it might sound terrible, but I do tell my kids all the time, like, work it up between yourselves. If you need to pinch your sibling back, go for it. If you need to, whatever, because they're going to figure out what works for conflict resolution, and they're doing it in a safe place in the house where I'm still here. I'm not like encouraging them to beat each other up. I'm encouraging them to like find ways to work together to work it out. You know what I mean?
Right.
Sorry.
I guess I'll amend my previous statements that to resolve conflict, you have to be prepared for things to potentially get uncomfortable. That you can't be like, well, I can't, that there's a lot of, like, oh, well, I don't like conflict, so I avoid it always. It's like, well, you can't be walking around in a world like that. And just like you said, with always going to the parents, that if you cannot walk around this world and have the only way to resolve conflict is to appeal to a higher authority. Like, you need to have a certain amount of self-governance, and that's even in governing your own emotions, your own manners, your own, if I have a problem with somebody, I know that I can either walk up to them and say, hey, this was an issue, we need to resolve this, or let it go. And that is within my power. That is not in a higher authority's power to sort out every little thing. Okay, they exist for large things, not little arbitrations. Like there was a joke ages ago about Port St. Lucie in Florida, and that somebody called the police because they ran out of chicken nuggets, and stories like that have happened several times. Okay, stupid, and this happened years ago. Right. But anyways, it's that sort of mentality of, I can't solve this problem by talking with management, or just simply there are no chicken nuggets. Okay, order something else or go somewhere else. No, I have to call the police. That doesn't make sense. And it's we can't have a protest and a counter protest and have everything be nice unless we're standing far apart from each other. And part of the counter protest too is that there was somebody who came over to talk to the counter protest. And it was interesting because, it was the presumably, I believe he was gay man talking about, that he, this guy said he was praying for him. He's like, no, I don't need that. And also all of you dead. You all want the gay, all the gay people at this drag show dead. And the guy was like, no, I don't want you dead. He's like, oh, but you do though. And then going on to accuse this man of having cheated on his wife sometime because they had been married for so long. It's not just, okay, it's rude and it's awful, but also that's the assumption. That is this guy's assumption of truth about this, very religious couple who pray for people at protest. Okay, that, and they were going up, and Crowder's group was going around with a microphone. It was interesting too that is that they were talking to different people at the event, but yeah, that it was, anyways, interesting video. I know I'm ranting about it a lot, but the just the walking around and talking to different people, and those people are awful, and talking to those evil conservative sides are awful. They don't want any equality, inclusion anyways. Walk over to the evil conservatives, they're like, it's fine if you have a drag show, don't have kids there. And then you're walking to the people who are for the drag show, and they're saying, no, it's okay, everything about this drag, sure, there's like a couple kids. There was there was at least a dozen kids. It's like, oh, there's only a couple kids here, and after all, it's all going to be PG. Really wasn't though, because there was also footage of it.
But so I think I may have mentioned this commenter that I was talking to on Instagram one day, but your conversation about the gay guy approaching the conservative made me remember it. There was somebody on one of my posts that was saying things about me like, if one of your kids is gay, you won't love them. And
Right.
I was like, I don't want hard life for my kids. I want my kids to have a very easy life. I want it to go very smoothly and happily for them. But if that's what happens to them, I'm never going to like forsake them. They are my children. I will love them no matter what. And the person was kind of like telling me these things that I'm going to do. And through a little bit more talking, I said, you know, it sounds like you had a bad experience with the church. And it sounds like maybe you had a bad experience with Christians. And I'm really sorry that that happened to you. I said, but I don't, the way I practice my Christian faith is not that way. I will love you no matter what. Doesn't mean I have to condone what you're doing, but it doesn't mean that I hate you or I want you to die or anything else. In fact, the reason that I'm so against kids transitioning is because I don't want them to die. I don't want them doing things to themselves that they cannot change later on. But I think that when you get into these arguments with people who are saying things that are just so out of left field and they're putting them on you, it's because those are feelings that they actually have inside. And it could be from an experience or from what they've heard or been told, or, you know, I used to tell my husband, I will never put a Christian radio sticker on my car because sometimes I am not a good driver. And sometimes I like to flip people the bird. And I'm like, I don't want them seeing that Christian thing on my car being like, look at that Christian, because we're all human and we all do stuff that's not our proudest moment. And I wouldn't want a whole group of people being judged on my incident of road rage when I'm running late and ticked off. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and even with different things, and I forget if we mentioned this before, but it was one of the interactions that Neil had with a certain Twitter user whose initials are BK. Unblock me. We could have fun. Anyways, but I assume unspecified user, talked about it. And this is what Neil's good Christian followers say. It's like, okay, first off, it's like you're assuming that everybody here is a Christian. And I mean, Neil isn't. He's talked about that pretty openly. But also that all Christians must act the same, and they must act to my perfect ideal of what a Christian is in order for them to be a Christian. It's like that this person's assumption of how Christians ought to act all the time is what Christianity is, and not, you know, what Christians deem Christianity to be, which is quite a spread.
Well, and not that I want to drag on Christians, but I spent my entire school career in a private Christian school. And what I learned from that more than anything was the kind of Christian I didn't want to be. Because when you get that many all together, everybody's competing and you know, I was listening to Tucker Carlson and he said, you know, there's a reason that there are stereotypes, because something happens and then that causes people to perpetuate them because there's truth to them. And I think that Christians fall into that just like any other group do. And that's the thing. And not that I'm saying my faith is better, but I'm hopeful that because after high school, I did leave the church for a while because of the poor examples I saw. Then when I chose to come back, I chose how I was going to act based on my experiences. And so I'm hopeful that I'm an okay example because I kind of got the crap end of some of it. So, you know, you can base whatever. I mean, everybody's going to base things on their experiences. That's life. But it's...
Yeah, and that is, again, certainly not to condone bad behavior on anybody's part. Because, you know, Christianity, there is a high standard, which a lot of people fail on. I mean, everybody fails on, let's be honest here. We are human beings. but some are certainly better than others.
Yep. But I didn't mean to get off on a Christianity rant. I just I think that there's just something to it that people, no matter what, people have their biases and they have the things they believe. And when you talk to them, they're going to bring those in. And so maybe we should stop letting it hurt our feelings so much because we know who we are. I don't know. I don't know if that's like something we can do, but it's just a thought.
It's an important thing too, though, that's like, not that the internet is nothing, but it is just the internet. It is people who don't know who you are making assumptions about you.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we can't say that the internet's nothing because there would be no Ann and DK if there was no internet. And that would be a sad, sad day. No politically incorrect knitters, no knitting wars, nothing. But also, the odds of finding a true friendship like that, probably not very high. And so if you found a couple of good friends online, you're one of the lucky ones. I have Anne, and I have all the people that are like on our Tuesday show, but especially my tech editor. She's a random lady in Georgia. I've tried to meet her a couple of times, and when I've been traveling through Georgia, it just hasn't worked out to meet her. I called her the other night at like 10 o'clock at night. I was having some I just needed to talk to her, and she was just there, and it was, so if you can make good friends, that's fantastic. But for the most part, they're just people behind a computer screen like you. So that's life. But seriously, when they're trying to be mean to you, let it go. Think about where maybe they have come into contact with that idea before, like the person I was talking to who had been in the church and was disowned for not conforming. My heart hurts for that person. That's a sad spot to be in. And that's not something I'd wish on anybody. So if we can, maybe go and looking at things a little bit more like that. But didn't mean to get preachy today. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I don't know. It's back to school. It's my kids are on everybody's nerves. I'm trying to mediate. I guess I've got my mom hat on today. I'm sorry.
That's all right. It's back to school season, and and the president has gone off the rails, and it's time to sit down and say, it's okay if not everybody likes you. It's you who have to figure out if you're good, not the other guy. All right, so we have, repeating again, live from the Knitting Wars this Tuesday, 2 p.m. Eastern. Check back for who's going to be on the show. Probably some of our old pals. As always, it'll be a good time.
Oh, there probably won't be an infographic because I'm going to be out of the internet all weekend camping. I hope I will survive. I will not guarantee anything. If I have time, I will make a little thing so you know who all is going to be on the show.
Join our knit along, our 2 sweater challenge. Get your 2 sweaters in because energy prices are going to be crazy.
They sure
I mean, this is all a cool, fun joke until the power really does go out, or you have to, turn it down lower to.
For real. Did you hear about all the people that have like those integrated home systems where their thermostats are like connected to the internet and the company shut them off? They weren't able to lower their thermostats. And people think I'm nuts that I don't like use my Siri and stuff on my phone. No, they already know everything about me. I don't need to be like feeding them everything I possibly can. Oh, like, hey, here's the locks to my house. No, thank you. We're fine.
Yeah, they're talking about that in the European Union too. Like, oh, well, with this energy crisis, we need to, freeze for Putin. That it's like, oh, we'll have mandatory that you can't possibly set your heating above a certain thing. Like, that's awesome. Great. Lovely.
Yeah, no. I feel like if I pay my bills, I can pretty much do whatever I want, but who am I, right?
Yeah.
Hey, look it. I match this yarn. Can you see? I was going to hold this up and show you. I don't remember the colorway name, but this is Chicken Lady. And it is really pretty, and it's not really that focused, but it's green and purple and pink, and this side's got some like blue speckles on it, and it's one of her pretty colors. I was making something with it, and then I must have gotten distracted because it's in a cake, but that's all that's happened to it. So, but if you like pretty colors like this, make sure you check out Lynn at chickenladyfiberarts.com and use the code PIK school20 for 20% off. And look at, I almost finished my ear warmer while we were talking. So how about that?
Yay!
It'll be cute, right? Yeah, maybe these aren't the colors I would normally pick, but you know, maybe one of my students is a Packers fan and it'll work out just fine. I don't know.
Maybe.
But all right. I think that's enough nonsense for today.
All right. See y'all then.
All right, guys. See you later.